Good evening and welcome to Open Your Mind Radio. You have myself, Alan James.
Myself, Stephen George. Good evening.
Good evening. It's Sunday, the 27th of August, 2017. And we had the solar eclipse last Monday. Or did we have a solar eclipse? You know, did anybody see the moon?
Well, I didn't. I can't say I did. No, yeah. But I was watching some news feeds on the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And was NASA playing any tricks, I wonder, with their technology, advanced tech?
Look.
I don't know.
If I can't see it with my own eyes, then I don't believe it.
There's a number of people who said, yeah, they seen a black ring going across the moon, going across the sun, but they didn't actually see the moon. Just, you know, I'm just putting it out there. You never know.
Well,
you know?
I mean, at the time when it was due to happen, it was raining here and very overcast, so.
Yeah, there's a few reports of energy changes, people feeling certain energy changes as well. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, I think I told you that I was feeling them quite severely, and although they're still there, they're not as bad. Yeah, so, you know, energy changes, possibility where there's a lot of things going on at the moment, and I'm just trying to do the research and look into what's going on. So if there's any news on that, we'll keep you posted. Anyway, welcome to the show. Now, our guest on the show tonight is a chap called Dean Oliver, and he's into alternative health solutions. And we'll be getting Dean on in a few minutes, but before that, we have a few things to read out, and we're going to find out what the communication channels are.
Okay, communication channels are.
The communication channels are email info@oymireland.com, by phone 046 927 1212, and you can also contact us direct through the OYM chat room.
Thank you, Mary. Yes, the phone number is 046 927 1212. If you want to call in during the show to ask questions, if you're going to ring in from outside Republic of Ireland, it's going to be 00353 469 271212. We also have the website as well for your viewing pleasure. That is oymradio.com. You can log in there. A lot of information, a lot of links. Links to the chat room, links to anti-social media, Facebook, Twitter, the YouTube channel, email, etc., etc., plus a plethora of information and podcasts from previous guests, well worth listening to. We also monitor the People's Internet Radio chat room as well for questions, as well as our own chat room. So if you do have a question, that is the place to be. If you do decide to ring in on the phone, it is an internet-based phone service. It does be kind of acting up from time to time, but it has been holding its own of recently, so you should be able to get through, no problem. We also have on the website there, we have the TuneIn Radio Link application for your smartphone or your iPhone. It's on the website there, so you can listen to us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Alan.
Brilliant. Right, just a couple of things before we get our guest on. Right, on a website called antinewsnetwork.com, Samsung warns customers not to discuss personal information in front of smart TVs. On an unusual step, Samsung just warned its customers that their smart televisions may be impinging on their privacy. Having confirmed that the smart TVs do in fact listen in on customers, the company is now warning customers not to speak about personal information while in front of their TVs. Now, that not only covers smart TVs, but also these Amazon Siri, and all these kind of machines that you plug in and you say, Siri, what's on TV tonight? And they'll come back and give you an answer. They're listening all the time, and all that information will be logged and tracked, and smart TVs obviously do the same thing. Plus, some of these smart TVs have a webcam as well. So just be aware of that, you know, if you have a smart TV, my TV in the bedroom, I can happily say is a good old-fashioned 4.3 analog TV, and it does the job.
Weighs about half a ton, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It does weigh about half a ton, yeah. It even has a video thing in the front of it. That's how old it is. But yeah, no smart TV for me, I'm afraid.
No. Okay, BGR.com. Scientists remotely hacked a brain controlling body movements. Imagine someone remotely controlling your brain, forcing your body's central processing organ to send messages to your muscles that you didn't authorize. It's an incredibly scary thought, but scientists have managed to accomplish this science fiction nightmare for real, albeit on a much smaller scale. And they were able to prompt their test subject to run, freeze in place, or even completely lose control of their limbs. Thankfully, it says this research will be used for good rather than evil for now.
Yes, all right. Okay.
Dodgy.
I'd actually query that. How's your week?
Yeah, not too much to report at all. The first thing I want to say, well, I've only got two things to mention. One is there's a lot of nice places in Ireland, as we all know, and they're kind of hidden away. And I heard of one during the week, and I mentioned it to the family, and we went up there this morning for a quick look. It's Slieve Gullion. It's in the county of Armagh. And it is it's a forest. It's a big forest, and it has a huge playground in it for children. There's a fairy garden. Now, we went up there this morning. As I say, the rain kind of hampered it, so we didn't get to see the whole of the place. We only seen a small portion of it. But I have to say, it's free in, and free is always good. So I mean, you just literally need a couple of sandwiches and the cost of a half tank of petrol even, and it's from where we are, it's about an hour's drive, and I think from Dublin it's about an hour's drive as well, so you know, it's not a million miles away. A lot to see and a lot to do up there for both adults and children. So if you have children or grandchildren, you could do worse than bring them up there. Again, it's called Slieve Gullion in the county of Armagh, and a nice place to be, and there's a lovely drive, I have to say, a beautiful drive when you're exiting the place. Maybe a 20-minute drive up and around the mountain, and I have to say, it's scary. It's very scary. Well, I wasn't scared.
Scenic,
but my
though.
passengers were.
Would it be scenic?
Oh, very scenic, yeah, absolutely. Okay. The scenery is beautiful, and you see a lot of sheep along the way, and I think the red squirrels, etc., etc. Anyway, moving on. The only other thing I want to mention is you said, and you mentioned there just a moment ago, about the aches and pains. You know, I mean, I was kind of looking at you the past couple of weeks going, what's he talking about? You know, these energy changes. I'm not feeling anything. There's something wrong with me. But all this week, I have to say, I've been having aches and pains. And normally I have a little bit of trouble trying to get off to sleep of a night. But I've had no trouble this past week. In fact, I've been falling asleep sitting on the sofa. And when I'm getting up in the morning, it's like I've already done a day's work, and my body is saying, no, you should be going back to bed and not getting up for work. So I don't know if that's kind of part and parcel of these energy changes, but I've certainly been going through it this week. And even here now, every moral fibre of my body is hurting. So please send me your good wishes and thoughts. Thanks very much. Yeah, that's about it. I haven't really done much research this week, because even sitting in front of the PC, you know, in my normal kind of hunched over position, it's just painful. So there we go. Anyway, how's your week?
Well, maybe on my list, maybe what you need is a hug.
Oh.
Because we're going to be talking to Dean shortly about health. And one of the things I was looking at during the week, funny enough, was about hugging. And, you know, hugging is very underestimated and the benefits of it. And basically, the article was saying that we often hug each other when we are happy or when we see a friend or a loved one. We often feel joy and happiness when hugging another person. And a hug can convey a lot about how we're feeling and how we feel about each other. Now, it says, the article says, each time we sincerely hug someone, we are actually conveying their love or joy for that person in a way that can never be explained through words alone. We feel all our burdens ease away while we are in a hug, and those worries are replaced by increased feelings of happiness and trust. Now, the things that you benefit from a hug, and this is, there's more benefits from this. I've only put like a list of a few things. You get, it increases bonding, relaxes the body, relieves pain, increases empathy and understanding, relieves depression and neurodegenerative disorders, elevates mood, balances nervous system, alleviates stress, improves heart health, decreases heart rate, boosts immune system, and reduces worry and mortality. A study published in the journal Psychological Science revealed that hugging and touching reduce worry of mortality. The study also discovered that even hugging an inanimate object like a teddy bear was enough to soothe individuals' existential fears. Moreover, imagining hugging a person you love the most can cause your brain to release serotonin, dopamine and endorphins, triggering feelings of happiness and joy. This will also negate the worries of mortality by decreasing the levels of stress hormone, by altering the perception of the brain and by evoking positive emotions. Don't worry, hug and live longer. To conclude, a hug can make us confident and amiable. It can help in our strengthening our bonds and can open up the gates in depth to our minds. It can help in establishing a sense of trust between people and can make us open our hearts to each other. The hug can cause a great change within us. It triggers a massive release of neurohormones in the body and can calm our minds. These neurohormones will bring joy and happiness in us and will alleviate our sadness, tensions and anxieties. Hugging alleviates pain and brings ecstasy. Keep hugging. And I am a hugger. I have to say, I am a hugger.
Yes, you are.
I am a hugger. But some people I know are not huggers. You know, they just maybe somewhere in their life, or maybe it's just something that they just don't like, or, you know, I don't know what it is, but I think it's important that, you know, if people are not huggers, maybe they should say, I'm not really a hugger. And, you know, don't take offence by it. That's fine. Not a problem at all. But there's the benefits of hugging. And I've heard a lot more about the spiritual side as well from hugging as well. So there you go.
And no, I've heard that as well. I've heard that a long time ago as well about the benefits of hugging someone, and, you know, it does relieve stress and it communicates a lot of emotion. And it is true. And I have to say, sometimes, and I think we've all been there, if a loved one or a child have hurt themselves or are going through something, or you know, emotionally upset, and you come here and you hug them, it makes it so much better.
Yeah.
And I mean, as an example, I have to say, my family, we're not really huggers. I know it's kind of a big thing. You see it in America and stuff like that, but we wouldn't be huggers.
Yeah.
You know. But I have to say, when our dog died last year, I think the last time I hugged my daughter, and you know my daughter, she's 16, she's a moody teenager, and the last time I would have hugged her would have been a long time ago. But when the dog died, she was brought down to the vet, and there was an injection administered, and my daughter came out, and tears streaming down her face. She was in bits, and the first thing she did, when she seen me standing out there, she came over and threw her arms around me, and gave me a hug, and I hugged her back, and I have to say, it was a very emotional time. So there's a lot of benefits to it. Hug somebody, hug a tree.
Hug a tree. Well, my son is taller than me now. He how kind of he's big, right? But we always hug, you know, and it's good doing that. I just think it's good for bonding, and because I want my son to be able to do that and not go down this road of you're a macho man and you shouldn't be hugging and don't show your emotions. Yeah. I'm not into that kind of crap, to be honest with you, you know. That's like dinosaur stuff. I want him to be understanding about emotions and be empathetic, you know, and he is. I have to say he is. Now, that's it. We're going to bring our guest on now because we're going to be talking about the benefits of health. And we were told about Dean. Dean's on Facebook, and we were told about Dean and the things that Dean have been doing, and great reports on the work he's been doing and helping a lot of people. So we said we'd get him on the show and have a chat to him and see what he can tell us about health. And because more and more people are kind of waking up to the alternative, taking responsibility for their own actions. And not going into the 19th century medicine or going into hospitals. Now, there are times you need to go in, and we understand that. But if you can kind of, you know, treat yourself as much as you can, all the better. Now, before we bring Dean in, I'll let Steve read out the bio and give you some background information.
Okay. Dean Oliver is the architect of Sacred. Following the loss of several beloved family members, Dean became disenchanted with Western medicine and was guided towards earth-made solutions for many of the man-made problems we face today. After an exploration of self-healing in 2012, Dean envisaged a world where people became less disconnected and the healing power of plants was available to all. And how would he do this? By providing access to safe, effective and affordable medicine which facilitates people in self-healing. Dean became passionate in uncovering the truth about dis-ease within the body, predominantly cancer, and immersed himself in scientific study. He continues to question medical indoctrination and is committed to passing on the correct information so that you can live a more empowered life. Ever thankful to the plants for their guidance, Dean continues to regenerate himself to optimum health and cannot wait to extend the knowledge with you this evening.
Brilliant stuff. Good evening, Dean. How are you doing?
Good evening, guys. I want to say thank you to Steve and to you, Alan, for inviting me on to open your mind. I'm very, very thankful.
Brilliant stuff. Well, thanks for coming on, because, you know, we love talking about information like this about health and improving your health and empowering people to go and do it for themselves rather than relying on the pharmaceutical companies, because we've talked about this before time and time again about, you know, it's all about money. Really, it's all about money. Now,
yes,
there are tablets out there that are beneficial for people. I'm not saying that all tablets are bad, and we know that, and there's operations that you need that you have to go in for. We know that. But there are certain things that you can do yourself, and this is what we're going to get into. Is there anything that you want to add to your bio, or anything you want to add to that before we get talking about things?
Yeah, I mean, I think the bio pretty much covered briefly my story, and my journey ignited with death, with adversity, and the loss of quite a few family members to cancer. And in about 2011, 2012. The last family member passed away with cancer, and I thought, hang on, why do we keep putting our lives in the hands of these doctors, oncologists, and we don't know them on a personal level? So why are we taking their word for it, and the advice that they give to us? So I really started to look into what I don't think is alternative. These herbs, these medicines have been around since time began. The allopathic medicine in which the doctors and consultants are dishing out, these are new practices. So yeah, I really started to look deeply into herbal medicines, and the body, the anatomy of the body, and the biochemical changes when you put certain things into the body. And predominantly what causes cancer, because this is ultimately where I started, but that spurred me onto a journey, as I said earlier. It took me onto all healing modalities, and all diseases within the body. So we don't just work with cancer, but we find that if the individual does the work, i.e., you know, removes a toxic environment, a toxic health regime, a toxic foods, then they can absolutely get well.
Okay, and obviously you've been approached by people that have been diagnosed. We're going to be talking more in depth about this, but say somebody comes to you and say, Dean, I've just been to the doctor and they've diagnosed me with cancer. Is there any set generic routine that you get them to do regardless of what cancer has been diagnosed, or do you need to know specifically the type of cancer?
No, it doesn't really matter what the diagnosis is. And diagnosis in Greek means dia, by way of, and gnosis is knowledge. Unfortunately, the medical cartel are not using knowledge to diagnose. They're using a protocol, a procedure. So once an individual is diagnosed, they are pushed through a procedure whereby they are it's not discussed with the individual. They're just pushed through certain treatments that are prescribed more so by the pharmaceutical companies, and the advice of the pharmaceutical companies. So if an individual comes to us, that's the first step. They know that we don't like to call, the medical establishment will call a certain imbalance within the body cancer or HIV or fibromyalgia. Effectively, what these are just imbalances within the body. And we will target the body in a certain way where the individual will empower themselves. We don't give you a miracle, a miracle tablet or a miracle oil. We advise the individual how they can take responsibility for their own health. And that takes a little bit of work. Because when an individual is diagnosed, effectively it's the body telling the person to make some changes. because they haven't been putting the right things in, and the environment of the body will be very acidic, which deteriorates cells, so we want to start to rejuvenate the body and put the right fuel back into the body so the body can self-heal effectively. That's what we do. Individuals will often say, oh, Dean Oliver is a healer, is a herbalist. I don't claim to be any of those things. I feel more that I'm a facilitator. And I would just give the individual the right information that they can go and act out themselves. And then I would advise and suggest where they can get certain herbs or certain foods that they can incorporate into their daily regimes.
Okay.
And that's effectively what we do.
Good. Okay, great stuff. Now, before we went live, we had a quick chat about the CBD, and we know that, the big word now, we've talked about this time and time again on the radio show with other people, and the difference with the cannabis oil or the hemp oil, and the difference with CBD and THC, and what should be the mix. Some people are saying you can't cure it unless you have the THC. Other people are saying you only need the CBD. So we said we'd try and clarify this for people so they understand, because there's loads of products out there that will say CBD oil and they'll have a minute amount of THC, which is fine. And you'll get people saying, oh, well, that's no good because you need the THC. Now, my understanding is that the THC gives you the high from the cannabis oil or the hemp oil. Now, I suppose let's clarify what we mean by them two words, hemp and cannabis. If you were to get industrial hemp, if that was grown in a farm, and industrial hemp contains loads of CBD but very little THC. Cannabis, on the other side, is grown with there's more THC in there, and then you have to also remember that the street cannabis out there and resin and all that, and they found out one of the things that I came across with a report, and this was 100% agreed by all the doctors, that when they say that cannabis causes psychosis in young people, teenagers, they confirmed that the psychosis that are caused was due to the street cannabis being laced with chemicals. And it wasn't about the pure cannabis and people smoking or using the pure cannabis. They were using the street cannabis, and they said 100%, all the doctors agreed that was what was causing the mass psychosis with teenagers, and that's what affects people. But do you want to take it from there and just clarify or correct me if I'm wrong on what I said?
Yes. Okay. So there's ruderalis, which is hemp, and that holds around 483 compounds that we know of, that science is now started to uncover. This is also the case with cannabis. So within cannabis, it's in the same family. You will hold all the same compounds, the same cannabinoids, around 483 compounds within the cannabis plant. 3 of those compounds within the cannabis plants are psychoactive. They're the delta THC. And within hemp has been, you get an industrial type hemp that's farmed on a mass scale, and the THC content to comply with EU regulations needs to be 0.02% THC content. So the compounds within the hemp, they will have very, very high, very high CBD, cannabidiol. And it doesn't really matter, in my experience, because we're working on experience, whether the CBD is from cannabis or from hemp. As long as it's organically grown, and it's grown with a little bit of love, then those compounds are what we're after. So CBD in from a cannabis plant, around 10%, will do the same as CBD 10% from a hemp plant. It's, again, you're after the compounds and the percentage of the compounds. So again, there's only 3 compounds within the cannabis plant that are psychoactive. That's the THC. But I want to clear a few things up this evening, because the melting pot, the lid has come off. The pharmaceutical industry has been trying to hide the medicinal value of cannabis and hemp for the last 100 years. Well, it's about 80 years now. Before that point, cannabis and hemp were grown globally in all cultures, It was used for religious reasons. It was used in ceremonial reasons. It's been used for textiles, for clothing, for medicines, since time began. There's Chinese medicine textbooks that have been found where cannabis has been referred to. It's actually called Ma. That means the plant of two sexes. Because as we know, with cannabis and hemp, you can get a male and a female. There's not many plants on this earth that have dual gender, but with cannabis we find that. But so effectively it's been used for a very long time. So in the last 80 years, it got demonized heavily. There was actually a Cancer Act of 1939 brought out, which states you cannot promote a cure for cancer. What's happened now is that the information is being uncovered again. It's coming back to the light, and the pharmaceutical companies cannot contain this information anymore. They've tried to hide it. Now it's coming out, and the thing is, people are now taking responsibility and they're acting upon their knowledge, which is the beautiful thing. This is the key here. So what they're doing is they're going out, they're reading the right information, or there is a huge amount of information out there at the moment. So a lot of people are quite confused. What do I need to use, CBD or THC? What we find is that CBD is fantastic. It's legal in the EU. Because the THC content is very, very low. Again, it's 0.02% to comply with EU regulations. So what we found now is there is a huge market for CBD. There's all kinds of guys out there setting up companies and selling CBD. The problem we've got is that people again are confused, especially when they're diagnosed with what is deemed in the medical establishment as an incurable disease, like stage 3, stage 4 cancer or HIV or AIDS or something like this. So people are very, very fearful. They're going online and they're looking at the information online, and there's mountains of information out there. There's people telling you that you don't need CBD, you need THC, and vice versa. Well, science has now recognized that we have an endocannabinoid system that is within our body. So we have 12 systems in the body, 12 systems within the body: the lymphatic, cardiovascular, muscular, skeletal, and so on and so forth. Science has now recognized over the last 10 years that we have an endocannabinoid system. So within our body, we produce natural cannabinoids. So the medicinal value of cannabidiol or cannabinoids are anti-inflammatory, antioxidants, anti-aging, anti-parasitic, anti-cancer, just to name a few. There are many medicinal values to cannabinoids. So we produce these naturally within our body. Unfortunately, over the last 80 years since prohibition, we haven't been using hemp or cannabis as a food source. Before that, our ancestors would use it in food. Therefore, their endocannabinoid systems were working correctly. I feel today, because we're not using it as a food source, that our endocannabinoid systems are deficient. This is one of the causes that we are getting, we can't protect ourselves. Our bodies are not equipped to protect ourselves from the toxic environments in which we live. So when you're deficient in cannabinoids, you can ingest very small amounts of organically grown and not synthetic cannabinoids, and they will help to activate your receptors within your body. When you activate your receptors, and I find that, again, off experience, what we see is that someone who is clearly deficient in cannabinoids, they will start to take cannabis medicine or hemp medicine. Within 2 to 7 days, you will notice a glint in the eye. You will notice a spring in the step. The complexion will clear up. The hair starts to grow faster. The nails start to grow faster because the body is coming to homeostasis, into balance. That is when the endocannabinoid system is activated. It effectively helps the body to work, and in terms of mutated cells, so cancerous cells within the body, What THC will do will create cell apoptosis. So once the receptors are activated, that will send a signal with the central nervous system that will basically tell those mutated cells to die, and then the cells will rejuvenate. So yes, THC has an effect within the body, and so does CBD. But what I want to say here today is that if you're willing to put the work in, for argument's sake, if you have stage 3 or stage 4 cancer, what I've found from my observations and speaking with a huge amount of people globally over the last 7 years since I started this mission, that if you're prepared to put the work in, yes, cannabis will create cell apoptosis in mutated cells, and it will get rid of the cancerous cells very, very quickly. But if the individual hasn't changed their lifestyle, hasn't changed their thought process, hasn't changed their toxic environment, continues to eat refined processed foods and smoke tobacco and drink alcohol, then the imbalance or the cancer will come back to the body. So everyone's running around looking for this magic oil, these magic oils that are out there, but that's not the case. You absolutely have to put the work in. But again, what I've found is that if the individual really takes this seriously and wants to live, changes the thought processes within the mind and knows that they can absolutely rebalance stage 4 cancer, I'm meeting more and more people that are going heavily into detoxification of the body. Then they're going into remineralization of the body, and living on a more plant-based diet, and they're not using cannabis, and they are reversing these diseases. I meet more and more of these people all the time. So effectively, when you get an imbalance within the body, your body is just telling you that you need to make some changes. It's as simple as that. If you start to make the changes, you don't listen to the doctors, the oncologists and the consultants who are telling you that you have a death date. It's disgusting what they're doing. They're telling certain people that you have 3 months to live. We can no longer do anything more for you. You have 72 hours to live, I've heard. In fact, that particular case comes to mind. There was a lady in her late 70s, and she was told, you've got 72 hours to live. How dare these people do that? Because we know the mind is very, very important within the healing aspect. And you manifest with your mind. The emotion carries through the thought into manifestation. So if you're told you'll die, a lot of people, if they're not strong-willed and strong-minded, they will die at the allocated time that these people have told them. If you have fight within you, then you can carry on and you can live. Well, this particular lady, she was told she had 72 hours to live. Well, her son contacted us straight away. We gave him some advice. We gave him some medicines. He went back. He administered them to his mother, and she got well. This was 2 years ago, and the imbalance, the cancer that she had, is no longer in her body, and she's very much well and happy. So what I would say is, you can absolutely do this, but you have to take responsibility. You have to start making changes, and you can get well.
Yeah, there's no quick fix. People have to make the effort and look into it. Now the doctors, as we all know, have a Hippocratic oath, which means do no harm. And do no harm it shouldn't just apply to the physical side, but the mental side as well.
Right, yeah.
Now, people will ask the question, I'm sure they'll say, well, doctor, how long do I have? But maybe the doctors shouldn't say anything and say, but, that's the trouble is they just doing what they're told to do. But with something I'd like to touch base on, just for people who are not familiar with kind of history and why it's illegal. As you said, up to 80 years ago, it was made illegal. Now, before then, people were taking cannabis products. But what happened was the hemp grows very quick. And you can do so much with it. People have made car shells with it, and it's very, very strong. But the DuPont family at the time over in America were in competition with the hemp growers. So a bit of lobbying and a padded envelope later, and it was made illegal. And of course, when America makes things illegal, then the whole world kind of follows what America says. So, and that's really the history of it, really. That's why it's illegal, because it was a padded envelope.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And up until that point, it was everyone called hemp, and cannabis. It kept the trade because it's always been a trading commodity since time began. Cannabis. If you look at the Hebrew word, in the Bible, it's referred to as cannabis, which is a Hebrew word which means fragrant cane. Well, it's kept that name since Babylonian times, cannabis, because it was a trading commodity. The Persians knew of it as cannabis. The Americans knew of it as cannabis. So, you're absolutely right. Everyone knew, and in fact, there was taxes in place. So Henry VIII, that most of the British Empire was built upon hemp. The ropes from the ships, the canopies. In fact, that's where the name canvas comes from cannabis. All of the uniforms and the soldiers' uniforms were made from hemp fibers because they're very, very strong. King Henry VIII, he actually brought in a tax act. If you didn't grow on your land, I think it was 40% of your land, you had to grow hemp. And if you didn't, you'd be given a £5 fine, which in those times was a lot of money. Because, again, it was used. It was used in every shape and form, from clothing to shoes to shipbuilding, It funded bloody militaries. And this didn't apply just to the UK PLC. This was globally. China, they used it. Every country used it. But you're absolutely right. Once the American people were duped into signing this marijuana bill, because they knew it as hemp. And then there was they started to demonize it and started to call it marijuana, which is a Mexican name. So then everyone thought, it's a bad thing. It's going to make us do this, that, and the other. It's going to cause psychosis and all these things. And then they all agreed to this marijuana bill. And then the next day, when the bill came into place, they all realized, holy moly, we can't grow anymore. You've absolutely duped us into this. And you're right, the whole world then followed. So I think cannabis is a great way to show the people how we've been lied to, how there's been an illusion created for us, and they have manipulated the masses for a very, very long time. And this is where cancer is very, very important in line with cannabis. Because we're told that, if you get cancer, and 1 in 2 of us now, I think the statistic is 1 in 2 will get cancer. If you've got a cough, the programming that I'm seeing at the moment, I don't watch the television, but, I hear things and, they're saying if you have a cough for more than 3 days, you may have lung cancer. If you have a lump within your breast, you may have breast cancer. And again, the mind is very, very powerful. And if we've been stressed at work and we're getting an extra parking fine in the week and we're having to do an extra day at work, and we're highly stressed, we've missed a mortgage payment, then we find a little lump or we've got a cough, then the mind starts to race. And if we're told everywhere, billboards, on the radio, on the television, if you've got a cough for more than 3 weeks, you may have cancer. If you've got this lump, you may have cancer. This can manifest. They're playing with the emotions, they're playing with the minds of the people, and they're not stupid. They know exactly what they're doing when they go higher up. And they're casting spells. Again, when people are giving death dates, most of these people will die on that specific time frame. So, it's very important that the cannabis, the spirit of the plant is coming forth again, to create homeostasis within the earth, not just humans or animals. As we know that when we plant the plant in the ground, it vibrates with all the mycelium and all the root structures within the earth, and it communicates with the other plants. And it also pulls a huge amount of radiation from the earth. So, this plant has been around for a very, very long time, and the research and that the scientists are now bringing forth that we have an endocannabinoid system. Well, that's a game changer. When we ingest the cannabinoids and activates the receptors, then the body goes into homeostasis in line with a healthy lifestyle and a good plant-based diet. People will get well.
I think people are beginning to wise up to it. Now, there's other subjects that we want to get on to, but one thing that we just need people to be aware of with the CBD oil is that the FDA around the world, they're kind of legalizing it, and maybe they're just pandering just to kind of keep us busy, but they are going to be growing their own GMO synthetic CBD oil. So it's already started. So just for people to be aware that if you're going to buy the product, try and get the real stuff and don't get the GMO synthetic stuff.
Yeah, I'm glad you touched on that, Alan, actually, because what I've found, and again, my observations over the last 7 years is that, you know, they have already patented cannabinoids, which we know. How can you patent a God-given plant? How can you patent compounds within a plant? But what I see happening is that basically, you know, the melting pot is off the lid. Everyone is in search of cannabinoids, whether it's THC or CBD. Well, now what I see, there's a ploy where people are out there searching. The market is very much exploited. So, you know, for very small amounts of CBD, synthetic CBD, you'll pay a very high amount. And what we find is with the synthetic CBD, like the 30% CBD, that's unnatural. You can't really get to those percentages with natural hemp or cannabis. It's been synthesized. So what we find is that a lot of people will come back to us and say, well, we've been taking this 30% CBD. It worked initially for the first month. Now it doesn't work, and we're having to increase the dosage. Well, when you're working with an organic cannabinoid, an organic CBD, all those cannabinoids, that cannabis profile, that hemp profile is in its God-given right. It's how it should be. So it works much more effectively than synthetic cannabinoids. And these are the statistics that the FDA wants and the governmental agencies. They want the people to come back and say, well, yeah, I paid a huge amount of money for this 30% CBD. It worked initially, but now it doesn't work. So these are the statistics that they want. But not only that, they also, again, that, you know, everyone is crying out for cannabis and hemp. So what there is a ploy going on now. What they're doing is they say, okay, we will give it to you, but it won't be natural and it won't be organic. It will be synthetic because it doesn't work as well as organic compounds. So I absolutely see what's going on at the moment, you know, and again, this is where we have to take responsibility for our own actions and our own health. And our root message effectively is to show you how to become self-sufficient, how to grow your own medicines. And I'm not just talking about cannabis, because there's thousands, if not millions, of medicinal plants out there with medicinal compounds in there. Your food is your medicine is your food, as Hippocrates rightly said. So, you know, what I would say to the listeners is go out there and get your own seeds and start to grow your own medicines. And look to getting indigenous seeds. Don't look to these new flavors with these very, very high THC contents, again, that have been synthesized. And what's going on? They're outbreeding certain compounds within the plant to increase the THC content. Again, there's 483 compounds that we know of. We haven't even scratched the surface with this plant yet. You know, there's flavonoids involved, there's cannabinoids, there's tetracannabidiol, there's terpenes, there's a whole host of compounds that need to be in there and work within their entirety. When you start synthesizing certain compounds and start isolating certain compounds, they will not work as effectively as something that is grown in a natural and organic state and hasn't been messed with by man. So, you know, it's vitally important that we start to take responsibility and start to become self-sufficient. That is the way forward. Yeah,
and I think people are beginning to do that with hopefully shows like ourselves and yourself coming on and talking about it. Now, we do want to move on to another product that we did see. Well, I've seen an interview with Cliff High, and he talks about this thing called C60. And again, we touched base on it briefly before the show. And the guy who's producing this C60, his website, I'll put it out there because Cliff Hoy is talking about it as well, and I know you said that you're working with it as well. It's C60 purplepower.com. And this C60 apparently is anti-aging, and you find it in coal and you find it in Shungite, and we've talked about Shungite before because Steve, you've got the Shungite, the necklace for me and for yourself and for your wife and stuff, right? And we've done some testing with Shungite. I have, like Steve, I have a Shungite pyramid here in the studio, along with the orgonite stones I have also in here. And what they found with C60, and I recommend people go and check this out. It's quite amazing. It's anti-aging. And they found that some natural springs in Europe, where it contains this naturally, the animals are coming out of the deep forest and going and drinking this water. And also there's indigenous tribes in Europe as well that live to over 100 because they're taking the C60 in. And as I say, it's anti-aging. Cliff Hoy was talking about this in the interview, and he said they did an experiment with this, and he had laboratory rats, and he kept pumping the C60 into the rats, and the rats ended up living 3 times longer than what they would normally live, and he ended up having to kill the rats so they could check their body, and the body didn't have any lumps or bumps or any disease or anything like that at all. And they were amazed at this C60. Now, as I say, you get it in coal. And I happened to say it to Steve before we started the show that you often hear about pregnant women wanting a craving for coal, which is quite interesting. So this C60 is only new to me. I've only heard about this. And Dean, you've obviously heard about it and you've worked with it. Do you want to tell us a bit more about it?
Yeah, Shungite came to me many years ago now, and initially it came for the qualities, how it purified water and it restructured water. Then I started to really dig into it, and I was amazed, and science is absolutely amazed, and they're still uncovering things about Shungite now, and C60 is the carbon molecular structure of Shungite. It's like a football, if you like. That's what it looks like in the molecular structure. Carbon has 6 carbon atoms, while Shungite has more. What you do, essentially, it's found in a small village in Russia, and the kings and queens, not just from Russia, from all over the world, would come to this healing water in Russia, in chlorella, and they found that it had healing abilities, the water. So I think it was the late 80s they started to mine in the area, and they found these veins of black mineral type Shungite. So they started to look into it, and they don't actually know what it is. They believe that it's either a meteor that hit chlorella billions of years ago, or a part of another planet. They still don't know. But when they started to look into it, they found that it's a natural source of fullerenes, and fullerenes will promote life on a DNA level, on a cellular level. You have telomeres at the end of your DNA. Well, these will repair the telomeres. So like when your telomeres start to fray, the DNA starts to fray and it's damaged, like a bootlace. Well, the Shungite, the fullerenes, will actually repair that. So that's why it has the anti-aging properties within it. So I started to use it with water, and what I realized was when you put about 100 grams into, roughly, the ratio that I use is 100 grams of raw Shungite into about a litre of water. And you leave it for, after 3 hours, it starts to gain antibacterial properties, antifungal properties. And the longer you leave it, the more that it will give. And they're actually using it in Russia in the hospitals now, because of the medicinal value of it. It will, if you're familiar with Dr. Emoto's work, Messages in Water, you'll see how water has a structure to it. And what Shungite will do, it will give it a beautiful structure. So if you've got tap water, which will have no structure to it at all, it will be very mutated and morphed. Dr. Emoto proved this, that when you look at tap water or polluted water, it has no structure. When you look at a nice water, a spring water that has no pollutants in there, it looks like a star, like an icicle, like a snowflake, sorry. So basically Shungite will help to restructure the water to give it that molecular structure. And that's absolutely the case with humans as well. As you know, we're 70% water, and if we're around negative people or toxic environments, then the structure of the water within us will be mutated and morphed. Well, Shungite again will help to restructure that. But what we found was that once you leave the water for, say, 12 hours, it tastes different. And we've tested it with different people. So, I mean, I wouldn't advise to drink tap water. There are a huge amount of intoxicants in there. I distill water myself, and then I'll add the Shungite to it, and I'll remineralize it with certain salts. But the Shungite, you can absolutely tell the difference. I mean, distilled water on its own, if you don't remineralize it, it is acidic, and there's no structure to it. It's dead water. So if you put a glass of distilled water on its own and then you put a glass of Shungite distilled water, you will absolutely taste the difference. It will also add around 20 minerals to the water, and it will alkaline the water as well.
So when you say you Shungite the water, what do you actually do?
I say the ratio that I use is about 100 grams of Shungite. So your pyramid that you've got sitting there, that's probably about 100 grams.
Yeah.
I'd put that into a glass jug, and then put the water in and then leave it. You simply leave it. And if you come back to that water 12 hours down the line, that water will have healing abilities. It will have anti-aging abilities to it. It will have medicinal value to it.
All right. So it's not if you have any powder or anything. You're just getting the Shungite, like the pyramid I have here and Steve has as well.
Yes.
You've got a question, Steve. Hang on, Dean. Sorry.
Yeah, just very quickly, Dean, just in relation to the Shungite, maybe you can tell us about re-energizing the Shungite as well, because when I got the Shungite, it was the girl who in the store in Russia, she said about you have to recharge it every so often.
Correct. That's correct. So basically, well, let me just go briefly into the other abilities of Shungite, and then we can move into how to clean it afterwards, because it's just remarkable, this mineral or stone. So basically, there's one book in existence, a lady, I can't remember her second name, but her first name is Regina. She's a French scientist, and she went in and she did some clinical study into this. And she worked out that it not only does it purify your water and it removes any inorganic material, i.e. fluorides or pesticides, it also protects humans from radiation. So we put the Shungite near Wi-Fi, and the way that this came to light, there was a Russian farmer, and he was growing his crops, potatoes I think it was. And there was a phone mast put by his field, very close to his field, and he realized that his yield decreased very dramatically. And in Russia, it's common. People very much know about Shungite. They use it to put it in the wells to clean the water and so on. So what he did, he put 0.5 gram of powdered Shungite into the soil per square meter. And then he planted his crop, and he continued with his farming. When he harvested, he realized that he had 70% more yield. And that is down to the fullerenes. Again, the fullerenes will promote life on a cellular level, and they will also protect against radiation, i.e. the phone mast that was put near his field, it actually didn't affect the plants. And in fact, it encouraged them to grow more and yield more. So we've been using this with our plants, and we've been doing our own experiments, and we've seen that, if you have a plant, not just cannabis or hemp, any plant, you've got a house plant that's not doing too well, if you put a little bit of Shungite in the soil, it will come back and it will look lovely. Give it a day or two and it will be very, very happy. But this Regina, what she did, she basically, she did some clinical study into the energetics of Shungite. So she realized that a pyramid, a tetrahedron, piece of Shungite will give off a vortex, energetic vortex out the top. So the energy is recycled within the Shungite. So any negative energy is recycled and it will come out the top in a vortex manner. And she realized that 100 mil tetrahedron or pyramid, say the base is 100 mil, that will protect the auric field of us by, I think it's 1.2 meters from any radiation. Then she looked into spherical Shungite. So I've got like a 100 mil sphere, of Shungite. And as you know, this stuff isn't cheap. It's increasing in value all the time. But my sphere I've got is 100 mil. And she did study into the spheres as well, and she realised that once it recycled the negative energy or the radiation, it would give off a torus field, like the Earth. And also that 100 mil sphere would protect the auric field by 5 meters. So it's remarkable stuff in protecting from Wi-Fi, regenerating on a cellular level, purifying the water, healing abilities. But going back to how to clean it. So obviously when that Shungite is taken, like most crystals, if you're aware of the energetics of crystals and how they can be used to cleanse and you can program certain crystals. Well, for instance, my sphere, right? So if I've got it in the house for about a month and I've got a lot going on, there's a lot of dense energy in the house or some heavy stuff going on or whatever, I will actually feel a difference in the weight of the Shungite. So it's taking in that negative energy, also from the radiation and the Wi-Fi and so on and so forth. So the way to clean it, it's said to put it out with the moon cycles. So about every 3 months you want to put it into some salt water, and put it outside on a full moon, for argument's sake. Well, I used to do that, but I prefer now to put it out with the sun. I feel that the sun will charge it up more, and it also it recycles that negative energy. But what you'll find is when you leave it out, say for 24 hours in salt water, you'll see that the Shungite will develop flicks of silver and pyrite. It looks like gold, but it's actually pyrite, which is fool's gold. But yeah, they will come overnight. And it just kind of indicates how charged that this mineral, this stone is. And when you put it into your water, again, overnight you'll come and you'll look at it and you'll see, oh my goodness, there's flicks of silver and gold running through it. And that just indicates how charged that it's charging your water. The way I see it is it's as if there's an electric current being pushed through that water, and you can absolutely feel it when you start to drink Shungite infused charged water. On an energetic level, it's fantastic stuff. So we've been promoting this stuff for a long, long time. And again, I don't promote what I do. I just kind of advise people where to get their stuff and what will help to rebalance the body and what will help to regenerate the body. But yeah, you can actually get Shungite from us, and our ethos is to make these medicines and these esoteric, occulted minerals and medicines that have been hidden from us. We are making them affordable. We're making them accessible. So yeah, I'll give you some links and some information as to where you can get it, and we're very, very cheap.
Okay, well, no, that's great, because water is very important. We did speak to a listener who's originally Irish. He lives in Vancouver, Ireland, and he's been emailing us some great information regarding certain products that he knows there's a chap making over there, which re-energizes the water and makes it alive again. Yes. Because there's one thing clearing all the chemicals and all the stuff out of the water, but if the water's dead water and you're drinking dead water, exactly, you need to have that alive again. Now, yes, and I agree with the necklaces that Steve got with the Shungite. I normally leave that on the window ledge for the sun to recharge, and then obviously after a day or two I will then pick it up, and then that's the necklace done. With the pyramid, I haven't actually done anything with that, but what I might do now, as you mentioned, is to put it into a glass of distilled did you say distilled water? Salty water.
Yeah, if you want to charge it, put it into some salty water.
Water, okay, salty water, and then leave it in the window for 24 hours or so.
Let me just explain. I wouldn't put it into some table salt. I'd get some good Himalayan pink salt or some Celtic grey salt, some good salt. Don't use table salt.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I have some of that as well. So yeah, good point. I think people need to know that when we say salty water, obviously Himalayan or Celtic sea salt would be better than using the normal table salt. I'll give that a try with the pyramid. That's definitely a good idea. Steve, you've got questions for Dean there.
Yes, we do. I just want to say, I actually have one at home as well, and I have it beside my bed, and I have one beside my router just sitting on top of the PC at
Yes,
home. And I know, like, when I spoke with the girl over in the shop where we bought it in Russia, Anastasia was her name. She actually said about charging. She said every so often. She said every couple of weeks. She said, now she didn't say put it in the salt water, but she did say put it out in the sun. It will recharge. But I'm going to actually try that in the salt water just to see how it works. I actually have one in the car, a small one in the car, just sitting on the dashboard as well.
Good.
And
Good. What I will say with Shungite as well, though, I mean, it's not. It doesn't beat about the bush. If you're aware of crystals and their abilities and how they can be programmed and how they can be used to heal and to give clarity or whatever you program your crystals for, Shungite will bring things to the surface. So, it will bring, nasty situations or things that need to be addressed. If you're carrying Shungite around, it will bring out those, things, horrible, awkward situations that you've been pushing to the side. Well, it will bring them forth. So you have to address them. And that's my experience with Shungite and watching others use Shungite. It's not, it's a very, very powerful crystal. So, sometimes some things need to be addressed and Shungite will help to bring those out and be aired, if you like.
Well, funny, that's what the energies are doing at the moment. The energies are, which we've talked to numerous people on the show about, are now revealing everything through people who have been masking throughout their life, masking their personality. That mask is dropping, and
Yes.
we all have to deal with the negative things in our life before we can move on. And a lot of that is going on. A lot of that. I mean,
Yes.
I'm seeing it in my own family, things that are going on, and negative things that are going on that need to be addressed. So it's happening even without the Shungite, but there you go, you can add the Shungite into the mix and you get that as well. But we have questions for you there, Dean. Steve.
Yeah, John was wondering, I think we've already answered this one. John was wondering, would it be good to use both the moon at night and the sun during the day to energize or cleanse the Shungite?
Of course. I mean, I was told to put it out with the moon cycles. So, maybe once every 3 months, stick it out with the full moon. So maybe stick it out on a full moon or a new moon, and then leave it for 2 days, which I've done many times. I've left it more than 12 hours, and not just your Shungite, obviously. I use a lot of different crystals for different things. So I will put most of my crystals out on a full moon, for argument's sake, and I'll leave them out for maybe 2 or 3 days. So you're getting that sun as well, so you're getting a good balance of the yin and the yang. So yeah, absolutely.
Right, so outside, there must be outside.
Yes, I put them outside for sure, yeah. Or on a windowsill if you haven't got, anywhere safe that you can leave them. But I prefer to leave them outside, yes. Okay.
This is kind of changing the subject matter ever so slightly. A question that came in there earlier on, and it was from my wife. She is deficient in B12, and every now and again she has to go to the GP and she's getting these B12 injections. Do you have any information in relation to B12, Dean, that we could touch on?
I mean, there's a little bit of a myth going on. I mean, I don't personally eat flesh or meat or anything like that, and people seem to think that you need to get your B12 from the animals. Well, that's incorrect, because they eat the grass, they eat the foliage, to get that B12. So generally what we find is that things like spirulina are a very good source of vitamin B12. And they will have the complete amino acids. Well, I think they've got 21 amino acids within the spirulina. And if you just start to incorporate that into the juices, then yeah, you'll increase your B12, quite quickly. If you have 2 or 3 spoons, maybe once a day for a week or so, you'll definitely feel the benefit of that.
Can I just touch base with you, changing the subject a little bit more? You gave because you were
me,
taking,
you're talking to me.
I'm talking to you.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm talking
you're talking to me.
I'm talking to you. You're talking to me. I know you take spirulina, and I know your wife gave me a glass of spirulina.
Yes.
Oh my God, what's that?
I remember the face.
Yeah. But the Pro-Arginine, you tried it. How did you get on with it?
I used it all.
Yeah, and did you notice any different? Did you feel any different?
You see, this is the thing, and this is something I mentioned on the chat room earlier. I tried and I do take spirulina, yes,
Yeah.
and I was taking the Pro-Arginine. I took the whole tub of the Pro-Arginine, not in one go, mind. But I was taking it, but stupidly, I was continuing on the road of eating the crap. You know, I was still eating the likes of the crisps and all this sort of carry on. And it's only in the past 3 to 4 weeks that I've kind of learned, and I've said, do you know what? Stop eating the crap, and I've actually cut all the crap out of my diet, and all I eat now is, well, I have a proper dinner of an evening, but I have healthy breakfast, and I'm eating a hell of a lot more fruit, and I eat salads, and that's my lunch every day, is salad, and that's the diet I should have adopted when I was doing the spirulina and the Pro-Arginine. I should have had that, you know, I should have known better. But yeah, I'm with you, Dean, on the plant-based diet. Yeah, I can definitely see all the benefits of that, and not eating the flesh. As a vegetarian myself, I can definitely see the benefits. Not everyone would agree. I know some people say in relation to the B12 that, you know, you do get it from flesh, but I know that you don't get as much as people seem to think. Yeah, no.
Well, I mean, obviously, going into nutrition quite deeply, I realised that, you know, most people who develop an imbalance, i.e. stage 3, stage 4 disease, their body is too acidic. So going off topic a little bit, what we found was that meat, flesh, is very acidic. Predominantly red meats. I absolutely know that red meat is not designed for the human being because it can take up to 7 days to digest. And it can get trapped within the intestines, and then it starts to rot down and putrefy, and then that's when you can get pathogens and bacteria. So what we realised was, and I mean, what I've done effectively, everything that I suggest to individuals, I have done myself. You know, I've done the colon cleanses, I've done the liver cleanses, the heavy metal detox, the parasite cleanses. You know, so I have been on effectively a journey of self-cultivation and my own healing over the last 7 years. You know, and cut out the meat and, you know, the alcohol. I used to smoke tobacco. I used to smoke weed. Now I'm pretty, you know, I've got to a position where I'm very, very happy where I'm at. You know, I live predominantly on plants. And you absolutely feel the difference when you put a more alkaline food source into the body. You know, because it will also clean up the thought processes. When your body is actually very acidic because you're eating red meats and you're eating processed foods, this will also affect the thought processes of the mind. The mind can be quite poisonous and quite acidic. So, you know, absolutely, I don't supplement anything in. I've never supplemented B12 in. And I know that I'm in great health and I'm not actually deficient in anything. You know, I go off my own instincts of what my body calls for. You know, so, and I don't take CBD every day, you know, but sometimes I'll go to the cupboard and I may take it for 3 or 4 days. Then I won't take it for a month. Then my body will call me back to the cupboard and I'll take it again for a couple of weeks and then I won't take it. So I don't have a rigid, strict regime as such. But if you have an imbalance, then you really do need to do a strict, rigid regime every day in high doses. Take these things and look to a more plant-based diet. And I find that, you know, things like chaga mushroom, they will give you the B12. It's something that I drink most days. It's anti-cancerous and it's very high in antioxidants and, you know, very, very high source of melanin. So, I mean, you know, this is what we look to showing people. It's how to become human beings again. Because effectively we've been that disconnected that we've forgotten. You know, most people out there don't even know what real food is. They think you get food from Asda and Tesco and it comes in a packet and that's food. That's not food, man. If it grows on a tree in the ground, then that's proper food.
I think, Dean, we also have to take into account the fact that people at the moment budgets are very tight.
Yes.
And unfortunately, That's why, you know, the old saying, it's cheaper to eat unhealthy than eat healthy, because the unhealthy food is cheaper than the good food.
Yeah, again, it's been designed that way.
Yeah, exactly.
Obviously, organic food is very, very expensive, and you can go to Iceland and feed your family for a week for, I don't know, 30 quid, 40 quid, I don't know.
So I think it's important to say at this point that for people who are kind of saying, well, like, we can't really go shopping every day to get fruit and veg, what I try and do in my limited budget is I try and avoid the things that I know are bad. Things like, we know the tap water, don't touch it, right? I would have bottled water. I know that's not the best, but I am looking at getting a Berkey filter. To do that. But but for me, with a pH of 7.6, it's better than the actual tap water because of the fluoride. Obviously stay away from the aspartames, the MSGs. I don't drink, I don't smoke, give up all that. So again, you know, you try and cut out the bad stuff as much as you can, and then work with your budget, what you have, and then if you can have a bit of veg every now and again, or salads, as Steve said. I do like having a salad sandwich on good, you know, wholemeal bread is better than white bread. So in wholemeal bread with some like a salad sandwich with tomatoes and, you know, a bit of salad and stuff like that. With obviously a bit of Himalayan salt and stuff like that. So all these little things for me is just my way of trying to do the best I can to stay away from the bad stuff.
You're right, Alan. I mean, it took me 7 years to get to where I am now. And when I first started to work with cancers and people who are not well, again, it was down to my loss, and then I started to really look into the true medicines, natural medicines, not the allopathic stuff that is forced down our throats. But yeah, over that 7 years, I mean, initially when I first started to work with cannabis and the highly concentrated oils, I knew nothing about nutrition. I knew nothing about detoxification. So, you know, this has spurred me on my own journey of self-healing, because, you know, I felt that I couldn't advise someone on health, and I'm just about to roll a cigarette, or I'm going to go and have fish and chips from the chip shop, you know. So I knew from a very early start that I had to start to clean up my own body and go on my own healing journey. And it's took me 7 years. I smoked tobacco up until 2 years ago, you know, and I smoked cannabis from a very young age, even though, you know, I know it's used medicinally in you know, it's good for the respiratory system and stuff like that, but I was using it for the wrong reasons. I was using it to escape, you know, so I cut that out, you know, and the foods, you know, I ate meat up until about 3 years ago. So it's been a process of elimination. You're absolutely right. Stick with your budget, or stick with what you can do. I mean, I've only been distilling my own water for the last 4 years. Before that, I was drinking bottled. You know, you work within your means. But I mean, what I find is a lot of people, they are quick to make excuses. You know, so if you've got a bit of garden in the back of your house, you can absolutely go and grow your own stuff. If you haven't got a garden, put some herb boxes in your windows, grow stuff in your kitchens, you know. In terms of medicinal herbs that we're not utilising within the UK and Ireland, we have an abundance. You know, nettles were used by our grandmothers and our grandmothers' grandmothers. They were used in teas, they were used in the food, they were used as fibres, they were used much like cannabis, for the textiles and the fibres. So, you know, we can absolutely go out to the woods, we can pick some nettles and we can make some nettle teas that are hugely medicinal. They are fully rounded in all vitamins, they have boron, they are rich in magnesium, and things like dandelions. You know, they grow everywhere, and they are your liver's best friend. You know, if you've got liver problems, go out to the woods, get yourself some dandelions, drink them in a tea, make yourself a tincture, make yourself a cream. And as you'll see, I mean, if people have been following me for the last 7 years, they'll see that I'm showing you I'm showing you guys. I don't want to sell you anything. I would rather show you how to make this stuff yourself, how to make your own tinctures, how to make your own creams. And there's various videos and stuff that I've put out there over the years. But yeah, I mean, it's empowering you. And when you start to work with the plants and the herbs, they guide you. You start to get guided, and you start to work with the nettles. And then you'll utilize those, you'll work with those, then you'll be drawn to a different herb, and then you'll look it up. Oh, what does that do? What medicinal value has this got? How can I extract the compounds from it with a cream or with a tincture? So, the more that you work with the plants and the fruits and the vegetables, the more that you get guidance. I'm absolutely convinced of that, because that's the way that I've worked over the last few years.
Okay, well that's very interesting, and I think that is important. It's something that the listeners know that I'm doing. I made a raised bed. I put it up on Facebook, and in the raised bed at the moment I have spring onions, carrots and cabbages. Now I have to bring my expert around, my neighbour, during the week. I'm going to be bringing her around, and I want her to have a look and see what she thinks. Are we near at the stage where we can pull them out and then eat them and give them a try? But I'll let her, because I'm new to this. But I do think, I did the raised bed on, it's wood that I had lying around from an old gate, and I banged it together as a raised bed and put a bag of soil in it, and then put the seeds in, and job done. And anybody can do that, really, and if you can't build your own raised bed, you can buy them fairly cheaply. They are out there. I like the idea of the raised bed because it's waist height. You can walk around it. You don't have to break your back digging and stuff like that, So I think that is important. We have to get back to that. And something that Steve knows, a friend of ours, John, and John said to us one time, he said, you'll know veg. He said, isn't it funny? He said, when you walk into the likes of Super Value and you can't smell anything, but when you walk into a proper fruit and veg shop, you can smell everything.
Yeah.
And he said, that's what you should be smelling. And the other thing that I was going to say was, years ago when my mother was a young child, she used to see her grandfather take a mug and put it into the cabbage pot and take a mug of cabbage water and drink that with his dinner.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And I bet he lived for a long time as well.
He did, but would you do that now? Would you get the same protein?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, the fermentation of the cabbage and stuff like that, and the compounds within the cabbage. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, this is what's happened. We've been disconnected as a race. Our grandparents before them would go into the garden, and they, everything would come from the garden, or you're right, you go to a grocer's or the market and you could smell the fruit and the vegetables. Now you can't, you go into Asda or Tesco. I boycott those supermarkets, but you can't. And they spray the stuff, apparently they spray the fruit and the vegetables so they last longer on the shelves and they all look pristine and aesthetically pleasing to the eye. Back in the day, you used to eat carrots and they'd have two arms coming out of them, and it was all mutated, and that's how it should be, nature isn't perfect.
No. Well, here's the chemical that I mentioned earlier on, Steve taking the proarginine, and what we were told is that the veg and fruit that we had years ago, that our grandparents and great-grandparents had, they had something in it called nitric oxide, and the nitric oxide went into our bodies and it cleared our arteries and helped us from a health point of view. And this is what proarginine has, the nitric oxide, because apparently the fruit and veg we're getting these days, with all the pesticides and GMO and all that, it's lacking this nitric oxide, which is good for our body. So that's why I mentioned the proarginine, because if you're growing your own, and a lot of people say the same, when you grow your own and take it from your garden and bring it straight into your kitchen and put it on your plate, the taste of the carrots and tomatoes and cabbages are nothing like what you'd buy in Super Value or Tesco's.
Absolutely, they taste completely different. And obviously, when you've nurtured from seed, then the essence of that comes through as well. You feel the love that you've given to those seedlings, and they've grown up into carrots or or hemp or cannabis, you can feel the essence within those fruits, vegetables and salads. And there's nothing more satisfying as well. You're absolutely right. When you can go out and bring something in from the garden, you taste the difference. Absolutely.
And you're taking out all them people in the food chain by just going out to your back garden, getting it and bringing it back in. Now, it does take a lot of work. There is a great website out there. I've mentioned it before. It's called Quick Crop. I think it's quickcrop.ie or quickcrops.ie, and they have loads of videos on how to grow your fruit and veg and stuff like that. Now, it's a good website with video tutorials, and it's very handy. It doesn't cover anything got to do with medicinal stuff, and we're going to get your details at the end of the show so people can go over to your website and find out about that, because I think that's very important to be able to do that. But it's just for people, we need to, that skill seems to have been lost by a couple of generations. And if anything ever happened, a lot of people would be stuffed. Because, again, if you ask kids where do tomatoes come from, they'll probably say Tesco's.
That's true.
Not from the ground.
That's true.
And we have talked about this program. You go on YouTube, you watch a program. It was done by National Geographic called American Blackout, and they gave you a documentary based on one hand you had the prepper, on the other hand you had the two people in the condo going, "Where's the maintenance man? There should be power." And they give you the example of what happened if power goes down over a 10-day period, and it's just. It was a brilliant documentary to give you an idea what would happen. I mean, day one, they're sharing their food from the freezer. Day three, they're killing each other for a tin of beans.
Yeah.
So it's frightening, but at the same time, I think people need to have that knowledge. We have to go back, because otherwise, another movie which we mentioned time and time again on the show, I don't know whether you've seen it, Dean, called Silent Green. Charlton Heston was in it in 1973, and they did a future prediction of 2022. So this movie was done in 1973, talking about the future of 2022, and guess what? All the food is not food.
Wow.
I think they were trying to tell us something. So if you don't get a copy of that, let me know and I'll sort out a copy for you, because this would be, and there's a spin to it as well. I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to spoil it, but there is a spin to it as well. I think you'll find that very interesting. But I think we have more questions come in there, Steve.
Yes, Chris has a question, and this question is dear to all of our hearts, Dean. In relation to beer, is there a beer that's out there that you could recommend that doesn't have any of the bad stuff, so you kind of get all of that lovely beer taste but none of the bad beer crap?
Well, I have to be completely honest. Alcohol is an intoxicant. So yeah, I couldn't recommend any beer or spirits. I mean, the spiritual aspect of spirits, you get light and dark, and you consume too many spirits, maybe white spirits, some gin or whatever, and then you can't remember how you got home, whatever possessed you. And these spirits are in every top shelf of every pub. So for me, I kind of knew that I had to stop drinking alcohol or intoxicants, from early on. Again, they are very, very acidic, and they're neurodestroyers. So yeah, unfortunately guys, I couldn't recommend, an alcohol for you.
Well, unfortunately, Chris, I hope that answers your question. So have you, just in relation to beer, have you cut it out completely? I mean, because obviously there are people who, they want to be healthy and they want to do the right thing, and I know you have to make the change and you have to give it 100%. But in the interim, could you, let's say for argument's sake, give it your best shot and do all the healthy stuff 6 days a week, and maybe on the 7th day, I mean, even God rested on the 7th day, allegedly. on the 7th day, could you have a curry and a six-pack?
Yeah, I mean, it is balance, initially. I mean, again, it took me 7 years to get to where I'm very, very happy with myself, mentally, spiritually, and physically. But it took me, a process of elimination. And the problem is, if people are too hard on themselves, they will crash very, very quickly. Say if you're a meat eater and you go out to the pub 3-4 times a week and you smoke tobacco and, you eat quite a lot of processed foods and you think, right, I'm going to make change tomorrow and I'm going to stop it all. you're gonna head to a crash. You're gonna fall because you're cutting out a lot of addictions.
You'd have a body shock. Because your body being so used to being acclimatized and accustomed to it, and all of a sudden that's all stopped. It'd have to have some effect.
You'd go into some sort of crisis healing. Your receptors, your mind would be screaming out for the sugars that you're addicted to that are within the beers and the foods. Because the masses are addicted to sugars and we don't even realize it. And not only that, predominantly if we eat a lot of fish and a lot of meat, we will have parasites within our bodies. And this is something that I took note of very early on when I started eating meat, and I did the parasite cleanses, and I was horrified when I see what come out the back end of me. We are full of worms. And what I found was that you can absolutely take on the consciousness of another entity that is within your body. So if you're starting to clean up and you're starting to rein in, then you will start to realize the temptations of the mind and the trickery of the mind, especially when you start to fast. Because your body's telling you to eat and you're getting to that disciplined state where you know you're not going to eat, but your mind will continuously try to trick you. And then you realize that, again, if you've ate meat and you are full of parasites, and most of us are, that these guys will trick you. And you'll find that you're going to eat the sugary foods or the carbohydrates because the parasite is hungry. It may not be you. So when you start to eliminate the parasites, you absolutely start to gain your own consciousness once again.
Can I just ask you about that? Do you know they talk about doing the 3 days of fasting, which resets your body? If somebody had parasites and they did the 3-day fasting, do you reckon that would be enough for them parasites to die?
No.
And no, they'll stay.
No. The thing is, and we say that start a parasite cleanse on moon cycles, because parasites are absolutely more active when the moon is full. Hence the term lunatic. And you will find that there's more domestic violence on these full moons, and people are very edgy on full moons, and apparently the mental asylums will be more active because the parasites are more active. 3 days is not enough. What we suggest is that you really need to go at these parasites for 90 days. And you can do that with various different herbs and different foods that will kill the parasites. But for argument's sake, if you start on a moon cycle and you start taking Artemisium absinthium, which is wormwood, that is a very good antiparasitic herb, and you take that for 10 days, well, what you might do, you might kill mommy and daddy. But then if mommy's laid some eggs and then they don't hatch until day 13, then the cycle starts again, and those little baby worms will start to grow and start to crave foods, and then you will start to crave the foods that you thought you'd got over. So really you need to go with 90 days. So then you can kill mother, father, and you can kill any laid eggs.
It's really worrying that, but we do know we do have parasites, and we've heard it time and time again. Steve, you mentioned something on the show before about years ago about your mum. So it was something that the parents did.
Oh yeah, we used to be regularly worm tablets. We were regular thing, yeah.
And do they still sell them? I mean, what can you buy them in the chemist? I
don't know.
I'm sure you can. If you go and search maybe an independent, an old school one that's been there for 20, 30 years. But it's not common knowledge anymore. People are horrified when you tell them that you may have parasites within you. And I'd say, most of us have, because our diets are atrocious, and most humans are carnivores, and if you're eating raw sushi and stuff like this, then you will have parasites within you. I put many posts up about parasites, and hearing the responses back from all manner of ages, different generations. And again, you hear people who say, our parents used to give us this concoction and it was to deworm us. I put a post up recently that we overlook the fact that we deworm our animals, our pets. Yeah. But we don't deworm ourselves.
Now, and here's the other thing which I heard. and they were talking about the parasites in your body, and somebody said, oh well, we know that your body needs to be alkaline, so if we make our body more alkaline, will that remove the parasites? And apparently not. Parasites can live in your body up to an alkaline of 11.
Yeah. I mean, you have to remember that there's not just one type of parasite, there's hundreds. Not just parasites, there's bacteria, there's pathogens that are very, very clever. And they will also adapt to their environment, much like humans. We're very good as a species at adapting. And they're very, very clever as well. So you have to go with it with the intention that you're going to get rid of these guys and you're going to really cut out the meat. And again, I will stress this fact that when you do fully get rid of the parasites and the bacteria within you, you start to take on your own conscious thoughts again. And you stop craving the carbs and the refined sugars that you once craved. And it's quite uncanny because, I used to really enjoy sugary foods and stuff like that. And then, when I did the Parasite cleanse, and this has been ongoing, I continue to do it for a period of time. I didn't just do the 90 days and think that's it. I'm continuously doing different things to my body and taking different herbs to eliminate certain things. So yeah, it's brilliant. You know when they're gone because you stop craving certain foods.
Well, you said the magic word there, sugar. And sugar is like heroin to the brain. And our Western diet is just full of sugar. And if there's any way, like I'm a carnivore, right? And I try and cut down, because I'm aware of, too much is overkill. But the problem is that with the Western diet being very sugary, and with vegetables are quite bland and don't taste as nice as something that's sugary. I mean, let's be honest. If you had a carrot in front of, well, not you, but if you give somebody a carrot and then you say, well, here's an ice cream cone and here's a carrot, which one do you want? To a kid especially. Yeah. To most kids.
Yeah. But
right,
but carrots do, they do have a flavour.
Yeah, I know, but it's not going to be as nice because they don't have the sugar. So I'd like to see, get a chef and say, right, okay, there's the vegetables. How can you make these really, really tasty? Even if you're using some organic sauce or something to make them nice, that, the kids would go, yeah, that's really lovely.
Well, the thing is, all taste is learnt, and you can break a habit within 21 days, 22 days. Yeah. So if you've grown up in an environment where your parents are not aware of food, and we're programmed again in this day and age to eat from Iceland and eat sugary foods and really processed foods, because my parents did it. They weren't that aware of foods. They were carnivores, so they fed us meat. And even as a child, I didn't really like it, but I ate it because that was put on my plate. But all taste is learnt, So once you start to remove certain foods and you start to, I'll be honest, when I first started making the transition to a more plant-based diet and I started with the juicing, some of those green juices, especially with the spirulina, it looked like mud water. Yeah. And I used to hold my nose to get it down me because, I'll be honest.
That sounds familiar. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, a couple of times I actually heaved it back up. But the thing is, once you persist with it, you will change your taste buds back to a more plant-based diet, and you will start to enjoy the fruits and the vegetables and the vegetables and stuff like that. But yeah, you're absolutely right. If you put, you put two sets of food in a kitchen, you put vegetables and you put fruit, and you let the children in there, they're going to go for the fruit, because of the sugars, the fructose. Yeah. But what I will say is the fruits, they hold a very different sugar. It's a very basic sugar. With the refined sugars, they're a complex sugar. So the body has to break it down. The pancreas has to release insulin to break it down, and that's what we think it's giving us energy. But no, the body has to create all these biochemical changes. That's why we get the crash, because the body's breaking it down with all these processes, and then we get that high, and then we crash because the body's had to work so hard to break it down. With fruit sugars like fructose, they're very simple sugars. They're glucose, you know what I mean? So the body doesn't have to do so much to break it down and utilize the compounds and absorb it. Again, yeah.
I know it's a cliche, you know, your body is your temple, but it is, you know, in all honesty. Now, I was watching a video during the week, I don't know whether you've seen this, Steve, but they had a glass, and they had what was supposed to be a simulated stomach acid. Okay? And then he got a can of Pepsi or Coca-Cola, right? And he poured it into this was stomach acid. And all this black, sticky, gooey stuff, like the chemical reaction came up from it.
Lovely.
And it just looked disgusting. And to think that, and we also have seen the video footage of the Coke being used to take rust off chrome and stuff like that. And when you see things like that, you really think to yourself, and I'm drinking this stuff and I'm putting it in my stomach. Well, I have to say I don't drink Pepsi.
You're a Coke man, are you?
I'm a Coke man. Very rarely I drink. I drink goju berry juice or orange juice and stuff like that. That's what I prefer.
Yeah, I mean, we have to look at chemistry, and things like Coke are at a pH balance of about 3, which, as we know, we've watched the videos and we've done the experiments whereby they will strip rust, they will dissolve a tooth within days, and we know on a cancer aspect that, you know, cancer thrives within an acidic environment, but also degeneration will occur within an acidic environment. So if, you know, the cells will start to degenerate when there's an acid environment. If you're putting more of an alkaline environment, alkaline foods into the body will regenerate rather than degenerate. And if you look at chemotherapy, just one of the therapies that is pushed upon the masses, the pH value on a chemistry value is, I think it's about 2. So that's why the nurses will have to wear gloves when they administer the chemotherapy, because if they get it on the skin, it will burn. You know, and that's why if you hold Coca-Cola in your mouth, you can't hold it in your mouth for too long because it starts to burn, because it's acid. You know, so again, you know, when you start to make the changes, slight changes within your diet and your environment, then you find that the body kind of rejects the acidic side of chemistry. It doesn't really want the acid anymore. It craves the alkaline side, you know. So
how did you get the heavy metals out of your body, or did you do a diet or some kind of process to get rid of?
Yeah, there's different cleanses you can do. There's different things you can take. So like the spirulina, that will help to pull heavy metals out of the body. But also things like diatomaceous earth and bentonite clay. So they work by, so when you use it, you put like, half a small spoon into maybe a litre of water. And it's just an earth and like a powdered white powder. It's extracted from certain parts of the earth. And this is basically, so the bentonite clay, for argument's sake, that will be, it will have negative ions within it. So basically when the body drinks it, it will absorb the positive ions from the heavy metals. And then you will urinate them out. So you'll take it for a prolonged period of time, maybe 2 weeks, 10 days, and then you can see that your urine is quite dark in colour. And that's the heavy metals that are then releasing from the body.
And what about borax? Have you used borax?
Yes, it's something we're using at the moment, and you'll find that nettles is a very high source of borax if the soil's good. But yeah, we're finding that, you know, Israel are doing heavy study into this stuff for arthritic problems. And because Israel has a very high boron content within the soil, and that helps us to utilize the minerals that we absorb. So in Jamaica, for argument's sake, there's a very low boron content in the soil, so the uptake of the minerals is it's not as good. So yeah, it's absolutely needed, and if we incorporate it into us as well, then it helps with our mineral uptake and slow release as well. So yeah, absolutely. I hear people are having fantastic results for arthritic problems with it.
Brilliant. Steve?
What about oil pulling with coconut oil?
Yeah, it's something that I've done. And coconut, as we know, has a huge amount of medicinal value. And to be honest with you, it's the only thing that you should really cook with. You shouldn't really cook with any vegetable oils or any other type of oils because they do become carcinogenic when they're heated above certain temperatures. So coconut oil, as you can see, when you put it in the pan, it doesn't spit. It's not erratic in nature. I was under the illusion many years ago that the olive oil was good to cook with, but no, it's not, because it will spit. It becomes carcinogenic when you heat it up to a certain temperature. But yeah, coconut is fantastic. Again, there's many studies into coconut oil. I use it heavily within my daily intake of food and stuff, and I use it to extract as an extracting agent actually for medicine. So if I'm extracting from the cannabis plant the 483 compounds that we discussed earlier, I will slow cook the plant matter in coconut oil at a very low temperature, so I'm not killing the compounds, I'm not burning them. And then effectively those 483 compounds will infuse into the coconut oil. Then you can set it, and then you can rub it into the skin. It will go in transdermally through the skin, or you can ingest it, or you can use it as a suppository. Very, very effective. And the coconut is a driver, so it will drive the compounds in. It will help to absorb and to get them to where they need to be. Also, the coconut has been there's been research into Alzheimer's. And people are saying that if you take around 6 grams of raw organic coconut a day, it will help to disperse tau proteins that clump on the brain. That's why people get these degenerative diseases within the brain, because there's a heavy amount of proteins clumped into the brain. Well, the coconut is able to penetrate the blood-brain barrier and help to disperse those proteins. So yeah, coconut is fantastic. Oil pulling, yeah, why not? It's gonna help to remove toxins and plaques from the gums and the teeth. And you will also absorb through sublingually. You'll absorb through the tongue. There's a gland under the tongue, so that will go straight down to the liver. And you'll get compounds from within the triglycerides, I think they are, and different compounds from the coconut. So yeah, absolutely, why not? But what I will say is, once you put it for a certain amount of time, just look at it, because it becomes very white and very frothy, and apparently there's a huge amount of toxins within the saliva and the coconut once you pulled for a certain amount of time.
Yeah, I was doing it there before, and I think they were saying hold it in your mouth for about 20 minutes, and after the 20 minutes, spit it out. Don't swallow, because there will be toxins.
Yes, don't swallow.
Yeah, just in relation to the Alzheimer's, the lady in question who I think brought that to, that we're aware of, who kind of brought that to the mainstream, were Mary, I can't think of her surname, but we actually had her on the show, and we done a fantastic show with her in relation to the benefits of the coconut oil. She had her husband, I think he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and he couldn't write or draw or anything like this, and after I think so much time she had him on the coconut oil, he was able to then draw, he kind of got a lot of his senses back, where he was able to kind of draw a circle where he couldn't draw it before. So and we looked into that, and again, it was in relation to the triglycerides, and she said, she done Trojan work on that, and I think we're both advocates of the benefits of the coconut oil. And even in my home, it's very, very rarely that we cook with anything else but the coconut oil, and it's not that expensive. Like, people think that if you're gonna be using something that's gonna be good for you, that it's gonna cost the earth. It's not gonna cost the earth, and as I say, a little goes a long way with the coconut oil also.
When you were doing the tooth pulling thing.
Yeah.
Did you just get a scoop from the jar and put it in your mouth?
That's
and left it there? Oh,
I just got a teaspoon just in the morning, put it into my mouth. And that was it. Just left it there for about 20 minutes.
Oh, and how many days did you do that for?
About one.
One. Oh, you just went and tried it. Okay.
Persistence is key.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Yeah. No, you'd have to do this over a period of time. Probably 2 or 3 weeks, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, well, not even that long. Maybe if you do it for 5 days, and then you'll notice a difference. And when you're working with organic, natural, medicines and oils and compounds, persistence is key. and you start to notice the benefits within yourself. That's why the CBD is very, very effective. And we notice differences very quick, and the individuals notice differences very quick, because the CBD, we find, that works fantastic with neurological issues on its own. You don't need the THC. So I'm talking bipolar, schizophrenia, social disorders, Alzheimer's, dementia, these kinds of brain degeneratives, because again, the cannabinoids are able to penetrate the blood-brain barrier. And there's not many compounds that can, but the cannabinoids can, and they activate the receptors within the brain. So yeah, I mean, again, like with the cannabinoids, if you take for one day, you might feel a little difference. 2 days, you'll feel more of a difference. When you take it for prolonged periods of time, then you feel the real benefits, and the body absolutely rewards. When you start to give the body what it needs and what it wants, then yeah, it absolutely rewards very, very quickly.
Excellent. No, it's fantastic information that we've been talking about. I mean, the amount of things that people can do now, the likes of the things like the Spooky 2 and the Genius software, everything is a frequency. Yes. And what the Genius software and the Spooky 2 and other devices like that, what they do is they imitate the frequency of that item. Like coconut oil would have a frequency. As yes. would cabbages, as would carrots, everything has a frequency. And the technology is great. It's out there and people can use it. But, when you start looking at the cost of these items compared to going down to your local fruit and veg shop and getting the organic food, even if you only do it once a week or twice a week, it has to be better than not doing it at all.
Of course.
Start off slow. And that's what I'd say to people now. As I say, I'm experimenting with my own raised bed. And hopefully this week now, I'm going to see if they're ripe enough or ready to go to pull out and then give it a go and taste them. Give them a wash and taste them and see what they're like. And if they're any good, then happy days. I'm only experimenting. I've no green fingers. I'm just playing around with the idea. And I'd say that to people, give it a go. If you don't have a lot of space, as Dean said there, try a window box and get a few plant pots, pop them in and give it a go. And your wife, B.A., she did the wheatgrass, didn't she?
She did wheatgrass there for a while, yeah.
And how'd you get on?
Well,
it grew.
It grew. I mean, there was absolutely no skill involved. Just, I think it was a little sachet she got, and a little, I can't remember what the technical name of the thing was. It looked like a jar. Yeah. And, I just left it there to its own devices, and up it went.
And you can't eat wheatgrass, but you can juice wheatgrass.
Yeah.
And I think people have to be aware of that. Now, there is a lady over here, Dean, we've had her on the show. She's a great lady called Bernadette Bowen, and she swears by the juicing, and she's had breast cancer twice. And her health benefits alone by just juicing. And what she says to people is, every now and again, have a juice day. And just do for the day. And maybe that's the day people should do, is they pick a day and say, right, on that day, all we're going to do is juice. And juice the fruit and veg. And even for doing that one day, you'd probably find a big difference, over a period of time by doing it, So, again, everybody has to find their own way, what's easy for them. Well, I'll have to say, thanks a lot for coming on. We've reached that time of the show, and a big thank you for coming on. Some great information that we've talked about there, and all the different ideas that people can do. I'm going to pass you over to Steve to find out all your contact details, where people can track you down and they find out more about you and your videos. Steve, over to you.
Track you down. Yeah, I love it. So much information, but we haven't even scratched the surface.
No,
we haven't. No.
There's loads. Well, maybe there's a part 2.
There's definitely a part 2. Dean, for anyone whose appetite has been whetted this evening and they want to find out more information from your good self, how can they do that?
Okay, I mean, generally most people will come to Facebook. I'm quite active on there, and a lot of the information is spread there. So that's just Dean Oliver on Facebook. We've also got a Sacred Kana Facebook page. So generally, people will come to the Dean Oliver Facebook page for health advice. I do have a protocol pack. It's kind of a reset for an individual if they're not well, and if they continue the protocols daily, they do get well. And then we have a website called www.sacredkana.com. You can't purchase on there, but you can see what we do. You can see the discoveries that we've made. It is updated. We are updating it. And you can get us via email at sacredkana71@gmail.com.
Okay, all the bases covered there. I will put that website up on the chat room there for anyone who wants to copy it down. And the Facebook, obviously just Facebook, do a search for Dean Oliver. Couldn't be simpler.
Brilliant stuff. Dean, before we let you go or go off to the musical break, do you want to just add anything to our listeners? Do you have any comment, any positive stuff that you want to say to them, or make suggestions to get them rolling, get them enthused to get started?
Yeah. I mean, if you are faced with a diagnosis, it is traumatic. It's very traumatic, especially if it's stage 3 or stage 4 cancer. What I will say is, I know it's difficult me saying this, but we work off experience and we see people get well. I wouldn't worry too much, and it is time for you to take responsibility, and you can absolutely get well. Your body is just telling you have to make some changes. You make those changes and your body will start to rejuvenate. So yeah, I mean, I know it's traumatic, but yeah, please stick in there. It can be done. We see it.
Brilliant stuff. All right, Dean, stay with us there for a minute. We're just going to pop off to a musical break and we'll be back after this.
This is Open Your Mind Radio on OYMradio.com and people'sinternetradio.com.
And we're back, another one from Alan's 45 collection.
I hope you all shaking your trousers, shaking your pants.
Herman's Hermits, for anyone who was wondering, I'm into something good. Just kind of inspired, they thought maybe you could have good health.
Yeah,
there we go.
Exactly.
Yes.
Brilliant information from Dean.
Absolutely.
Again, we just put the information out there, and you have to decide for yourself what you want to do, how you want to do it, what products will suit you. We try and talk about as much as we can to give you so many choices, and then you can go and check it out for yourself, Google them, check them out, and see what you think, see what works for you. If it seems to be that if you ask most people out there and they're honest, they will say they have a problem. It's like that TV program Embarrassing Bodies. And, people go in and they've always have something. There's always something.
Yeah.
And I'm just amazed that so many people, there's always something wrong somewhere. And you have to ask yourself, is it down to just our Western diet and the environment and we're in and everything else? It must be.
Yeah, okay, maybe.
I'm talking
maybe
to you.
It is. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, I'm just thinking Embarrassing Bodies. Yeah, I've heard of the program. I've not seen it, but I think I've seen it once, maybe very briefly. It's like when someone goes in, then they have an appendage and it's larger than normal, is it?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I haven't seen that series. But no, there's always somebody. If you stop somebody in the street and say, "Do you have any medical issues or any issues?" They'll either have like leg, arm, eye.
But look, as we said it before, look, when I was growing up in our house, and I'm sure it was probably the same in yours, we had a little small box, and if you needed a paracetamol or a plaster, that's where you went, and that's all was in it. It was Disprin and plasters. That was the extent of the medicine box, and now people have medicine cabinets and a whole shelf in your home, a pill for every ill, as they say.
I bet if you go into any, and my house is no different. Now I'm not one for tablets, I have to say. They're not mine. But I try and avoid. I can't remember the last time I've ever taken a paracetamol for a headache. I really can't remember. I really, unless I'm dying or half dying, to take a tablet, I will avoid them. I just avoid them. But Steve's right. Every house you go into, you're guaranteed there's a medicine cabinet, and all the medicines are there. I mean, it can't be helped when you have kids, because you normally have the Nurofen and all that kind of stuff, Yeah,
I know. I have to take it all the time when you have kids, yeah.
It
just annoys you so much.
They're the paracetamols.
Yeah.
Now, during the week, one of the people on Facebook, a Facebook friend, inverted commas, mentioned about the GCR, the Jasara and the Sara reset, this money that's going to be coming soon for everybody. And we've spoke to Thomas about this, and we've spoke to Gordon James Gannon Oto about this, and we spoke to a number of other people about this. And Gordon James Gannon said, yeah, it's been going on for about 25 years. And just as they're just about to release the money, there you go, another problem. And this has gone on and on and on over and over time. And Thomas has said to us, with his intel and the good, the information that he gets, it's not going to happen, because it's not just about the money being released. If you think about the impact that's going to have on society, is if everybody was given £1 million, imagine the effect that would have on society. Yeah, okay, everybody is singing and dancing, oh, we've £1 million, brilliant. But it'd have a massive effect on society. The whole system, the whole financial system would just collapse overnight. So it's not going to happen. And because of that, one of them reasons, that's one of many reasons, but because of that. But a chap that was on one of her Facebook friends came on board, and he obviously didn't like what I said because I disagreed with it. So what he did was, instead of saying, well, I'm sorry, I disagree with what you said, I believe the reset's going to happen, he went on a personal attack.
All right.
And he started personally attacking me.
Is that him sitting outside tonight in the car?
No, that's not him, no.
Oh, that's just your stalker.
That's me stalker. And then he started personally attacking me. And so I said to him, okay, so because I disagreed with you, you decided to go and personally attack me because I just disagreed with what you said. And this guy said, I'm a light worker. And I said, holy shit. I said, sorry, excuse my French.
Jesus.
Well, that's what I said. I said, seriously, he's a light worker. And what he does is personally attacks people because they disagree with him. And I said, there you go. So people, if you're out there and there's people out there who call themselves light workers, inverted commas, and you wouldn't want to touch them with a barge pole because this is what they're like. When you actually, disagree with them, they go on a personal attack. You see the psychology here. We're going to be talking about having the teenage mind and the adult mind, and I keep going back to it because that's exactly what it is. They chuck the toys out of the pram. There, the euphemism is there, chucking the toys out of the pram, the teenage mind, because you're not agreeing with what they're saying. So instead of them saying, well, listen, that's your opinion and that's fine, they go on a personal attack. And it's just, the more I see this, and the more it becomes transparent about this teenage mind and the adult mind and why we have to be in the adult mind. And it's really, for me, it's down to the ego. Some people don't like to be, when you get into an argument, and sometimes you have to be the bigger person and walk away and say, look, let's leave it there and then walk away. But when the ego's involved, the ego has to win. I have to win this argument. I have to have the last say. And this is exactly what happens. This is partly the ego. They go on the attack for the personal attack because they're not winning, or they feel they have to do that. And it's sad. It really is sad. A part of our development as human beings is to move, and we've said it before, from the ego, ignorant mind to the wisdom and humility of the adult mind. And it just explains a lot of things. But there you go. Just be ready to walk away. It's you don't need the energy. You don't need the negative energy. All I mentioned was that we from our intel that we feel that it's not going to happen. I said I'm happy to be proved wrong. Not a problem at all. I'm happy to be proved wrong, but we don't think it's going to happen based on 25 years of it, nearly coming, and it never does. But there you go. So next week our guest is a chap called, and I'm sure some of you already know him, he's a chap called Tom Crawford. And Tom had his house repossessed by the bank. And we talked about this before, and it was quite sneaky. The bank wanted his house. So he was like 30 years in the mortgage, or 25 years in the mortgage, and he was a couple of years or 3 years or something. We'll check it next week, but it's something like 2 or 3 years away from finishing his mortgage. And the bank made a hiccup on his mortgage payments. And all of a sudden then they said, oh, you made a mistake. They blamed him. And this is my understanding of it. They blamed him. And to cut a long story short, they went after Tom and they took his house. Even though round 1, a lot of people turned up to help Tom. Round 2, the bank took the house. But we'll find out from Tom exactly what happened, and we'll clarify it. And this is why we've said before, be very careful of the banks. You know, you spend 25, 30 years paying off your mortgage, and all of a sudden there's a hiccup, and then they start causing the trouble, and it's not down to you, it's their mistake, and they end up taking the house because you've spent 25, 30 years near enough paying your mortgage off. They're sneaky, very, very sneaky. You have to be careful with them. Anyway.
Sneaky bastages.
Bastards. All right, for myself, Alan James, take it easy, stay safe. We'll see you next week.
Okay, from myself, Stephen George, well, yeah, it's been great, good information. I think Vin will be up next on People's Internet Radio. Anyone who's been following Ben Gilroy will probably know that Ben's good mate Johnny Squires is in hospital over there in Liverpool. So if you're a praying individual, or if you just want to send some good thoughts to Johnny, we wish him a speedy recovery. That's it for us for the moment. We'll see you all again in 7 days' time. Until then, thanks for joining us. Take care. Bye-bye.